none of the NFL teams want to be on Hard Knocks offseason this year. So you'll never believe who they got.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hard Knocks is apparently, they've called up Michael Lombardi and Bill Belichick to have the North Carolina Tar Heels. Oh, we have a lot to unpack. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We'll talk about what's at stake in college basketball this weekend, Saturday in the ACC. We'll talk about the NFL Scouting Combine. The ACC has 60 players at the Combine. What's at stake, and can the Combine sometimes be a red herring? But Kenton, man, and you know, when I sent you a link this morning that reports were surfacing that with nobody in the NFL wanting to do offseason Hard Knocks, they're likely to get the North Carolina Tar Heels. I thought maybe it was fake. Like when I sent it to you, I'm like, assuming this is real, we have to talk about it. And sure enough, it is real. The Tar Heels, it's not finalized yet, but they seem to be the front runners to be on Hard Knocks.
Well, Donno, I thought that this was CFB Centel's work. Shout out to NBA Centel for getting deleted and then coming back. For those of you who don't know, there's a page called NBA Central. Centel is its parody account. So I'm thinking to myself, this must be a parody of college football, because there's no way that of all teams in America, you will want to say, hey, we need to chronicle their offseason. It surely wouldn't be the Carolina Tar Heels. But of all folks who would allow people to take an inside peek, an inside gander at this is how they do it. This is how they operate. This is what's happening. I would say there's no way that the mighty Bill Belichick would let that happen. And lo and behold, Lombardi said, hey, this is the 33rd NFL team, despite not being anywhere near the top 10 or 25 or 30 teams. They're 40 or maybe even 50 in terms of the amount of players drafted in the past 5 to 10 years. They're still the 33rd NFL team. So them getting Hard Knocks offseason should be a great show. I personally may not be tuning in. I may, I'm still a professional, still got to do my job. I'm lying. I'm going to watch. But it's a very interesting dynamic popping up there.
So here's what Michael Lombardi, the general manager of the Tar Heels football program, like it seemed like he couldn't come out and say this is happening because, again, it's not finalized, but he basically confirmed that it's going to happen. He said on the Pat McAfee show today, there are a lot of conversations going on right now about Hard Knocks. We've had offers. I don't think anything's yet been official or signed, he said. When you're dealing with the university and the brand that we have at North Carolina, which is incredible, you've got to make sure that everything's done right, he said. All the T's are crossed. Bill, being Belichick, has been talking to different people that contacted all of us here and been sorting it out. I don't think it's official. If we do it, the idea is to let people examine what we're doing, take a look at the 33rd team in the NFL, he says, and see how we're building this program and what we're trying to accomplish. It'll give an accurate portrayal. So, and you alluded to that earlier. Listen, I know Belichick brings a lot of attention to the ACC, and to some extent, I subscribe to there's no such thing as bad publicity thing, the old P.T. Barnum quote. But I will admit, Kenton, every time, because Lombardi, he does a lot of interviews. Bill Belichick doesn't really do that. He kind of lets Lombardi, his GM, do all that press. And every time he's on, he refers to North Carolina as the 33rd NFL team. And it makes me want to slap him upside the head. I know that's become their tagline. That's become UNC football's brand. And they got the most decorated NFL coach of all time. But it's like, I feel like it's a slap in the face to the Ohio States and the Georgias and the Clemsons and everybody who have actually won national titles to refer to that program. We love, well, I was going to say we love UNC, but you know what I mean.
Who is Wade that loves UNC?
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to throw you into that, but like to continually refer to a football program that is, historically been pedestrian,
Yeah.
to refer to them as the 33rd NFL team. It's like, why don't you go out there with this staff, with Bill and Lombardi, go out there and win something before you start calling them the 33rd team. It drives me insane.
Or at least get a bunch of players drafted. Even if you don't win anything, at least show like, hey, listen, this is a very direct. We said that we were going to build a product that we're putting a bunch of players in the league. We have done that. But the most interesting thing about this, Donno, no publicity there's no such thing as bad publicity is a thing of the past. With what we have seen in the past 5 years or so, where like all of a sudden all of us know way too much about each other, it's a very different world. For example, I want to keep it directly to Hard Knocks offseason. Do you remember why no NFL team wants to do Hard Knocks offseason this year?
Yeah, because the Giants GM told the owner, it's like, oh, we don't need to bring Saquon Barkley back. And Mara is like, well, I would hate to see him go to the Eagles.
And where did Saquon Barkley end up going, Donno?
The Eagles.
So why is that important to this situation? It's important because there absolutely is such a thing as bad publicity. That Giants GM has a year to produce something great. I truly doubt that he has multiple years to flub around after what we just saw with the owner, the person who signs everybody's check, the person who, if they go bankrupt, congratulations, no check for you, buddy. That person saying, hey, I'd really hate for my star to go there. And then your star goes there, right? It's very much so a same thing for UNC because and again, this is me being very objective because I know how I've talked about UNC in the past, but very seriously, even if I was looking at this with some Carolina blue colored glasses, you still have a lot of questions to answer. You still have to answer the question of who is your quarterback? How aggressively in the portal did you go after a quarterback? When you establish whatever document, whatever this Magna Carta of UNC football is, that this manifesto that said you need all these things to be successful, what percentage of that budget went to saying, hey, this is the premier position in football? Forget everything else. If we've got one of the guys that can do this well, we can cover over a multitude of guys who do things all right enough. As opposed to the opposite, you cannot have a good team that covers up a quarterback that does it all right enough. A great team, sure. If you got a Bama, you can make a Mac Jones look like a first overall or first rounder, sure. But you don't have that type of deal rolling here. So you're going to have those types of things pop up. And how easy is that to put to bed as, oh, there's nothing bad happening here. Oh, everything's on the level. Oh, everything looks all right. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for UNC to dispel any bad notions here. And mind you, again, this is even with saying, hey, I'm giving y'all the benefit of the doubt. How many losses would it take for people to then say, oh, this program wasn't serious, and let's nitpick all the things that happened during Hard Knocks offseason to talk about, oh, we knew they weren't serious because of this. Oh, this was the moment we knew that they weren't a good team. Oh, the way Bill Belichick did this wasn't good, which could deteriorate the chances of Bill going back to the NFL, which is where we all know he wants to be.
Sure. Yeah, no, there's a lot. And listen, what happened with Joe Shane, the Giants GM, like that's not the only reason why teams don't want to do Hard Knocks. It's a distraction. And we've talked about it. I remember, I think, the Dolphins have been on Hard Knocks since, but I haven't covered them in person for a few years. But I was covering the Miami Dolphins in 2012 when they were on Hard Knocks. And a lot of people regretted putting the team on Hard Knocks because they had at the time a rookie. Ryan Tannehill was going to be the starting quarterback, and Joe Philbin was a first-year head coach. It was a distraction for the players. It's like, and those are professionals. Like those are, 22, 35, 37-year-olds. So now you're talking about bringing the Hard Knocks cameras into, a team made up of, 18 to 22-year-olds. And North Carolina, their next starting quarterback might be their true freshman. So there's a lot that comes with that. And, again, obviously they have an experienced coaching staff and a GM who's been in the NFL and all that, but you can't say that for the players. And bringing the Hard Knocks cameras in there is a big gamble.
Yeah, as we all know, I can't remember where I read this at, but the letting a subject know that it's being observed will always change the habits, behaviors, pattern of said subject. And at the end of the day, you want this program to run as if, hey, if I am Bill Belichick and I know I have a machine, I have the key, I have the protocols and procedures that are going to make us into a powerhouse, get these damn cameras away from here. I don't want nobody knowing my secret sauce. I don't want nobody knowing my stuff. I don't want anybody being able to say, oh, this is how he cooks that up. This is how he does. I don't want none of that. All I want is, hey, let's lock in and let's get this machine rolling as efficiently as possible. Whether my starting quarterback is a kid that was slow dancing at prime last year, or whether it's some incoming transfer that's going to be coming through the spring portal, let's lock in on what I need accomplished and not, again, shut out all the outside noise. Because like you said, it was a distraction for professionals who have wives or husbands, kids, and mortgages and all those things. We are not talking about 18 to 22-year-olds in that group. So, this is, I am intrigued to see this, and people are going to say, oh, Ken, you're just hating on UNC again. No, if I was hating on UNC, if I was saying this from my Locked On Wolfpack hat on, I would say, oh, what a great time. We'll all get a front row seat to the inner workings of the UNC football program, and I think it's great for them. I think that this is going to be a smashing success for their brand exposure. But again, from an objective like, hey, this is what's good and bad for y'all standpoint, me personally, I look at cameras being in the locker room and all that. I don't want it if I can avoid it.
It's hard for me to imagine that this is really what Belichick wants in his first year. Like, I say first, assuming maybe he'll be there for a second year, but it's hard for me to imagine that Belichick really wants this because, again, completely new staff. You're getting to know these players. There's so much important evaluation that's going to be going on here, for the next 5 or 6 months before the season starts. It's hard for me to believe that you want a reality show to be in there when you're installing everything, right? Completely new coaching staff, players learning that for the first time. If you have a really good first year or even an average first year, and then you feel more comfortable heading into your second season, maybe that's the time to do it. I don't know. It all seems very weird that they really want this the first year. I don't doubt that the UNC administration may want this, or at least be intrigued by it.
Yeah.
Be intrigued by it because it's like a commercial you're going to get on HBO every week. But for Belichick, man, it's a head scratcher to me.
Upper management always does things that the lower levels of folks have to deal with, right? And this is one of those things where I'm sure the administrator's like, yes, put us on TV. Yes, we love the cameras. We love the glitz. And it's like, wait a minute. Will the cameras and the glitz interrupt my day-to-day here? Will it interrupt me putting in place my system as I need it to be? And again, in the words of the wonderful group, the Bars, time will reveal. We will see whether or not this turned out to be a distraction, whether or not I'm wrong and I've overblown this. And it's something that's great for them, but we'll see.
Well, cameras are on in Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. The ACC's got 60 players there. It's not half bad. Miami's got 10 there. Clemson's got 6. North Carolina's got 6. Maybe that is an NFL factory. Not that you can credit Bill Belichick for any of that happened from last season, but we'll talk scouting combine. We'll talk some hoops a little bit later on. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day, you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Price is subject to underwriting and health questions. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure for your next listen, you check out our other shows. Kenton, Gibbs, and Grayson Boone do an awesome job on Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. Kenton, Miami probably has the first overall pick or had the first overall pick for the upcoming draft. Most of the momentum is going in Cam Ward's direction. He made a not surprising decision not to throw at the combine. Obviously, he's there for the measurements, the interviews, and everything. Do you like to, when a quarterback is projected first overall, do you like to see them throw anyway, or did he just make a sensible choice not to?
I think he makes a sensible choice because a lot of people don't realize that throwing at the combine is, in essence, throwing the guys that you don't know, running routes in ways that you don't know how they're going to run it. I'm sure Cam Ward has thrown literally no less than, 400, 500 reps of outs to Xavier Restrepo. He knows exactly how he's going to run that out route. He knows exactly how he's going to run that whip route. He knows exactly what his skinny post looks like. He doesn't know that from player X, Y, and Z from Oklahoma State. He doesn't know that from tight end A, B, and C from Penn State. He doesn't know. So, you can't really – I've never heard of, oh, man, we were blown away with the way this guy threw at the combine as well. I've never heard of that, and that be a major determining factor. I have heard guys say, oh, he didn't quite have zip on the ball like we thought was going to be there. Or, oh, man, he missed a lot of throws today, which – it's one of those things that's kind of odd to me because it's like, well, if it can't help me, how can it hurt me? But it is what it is. I don't blame Cam Ward at all for sitting this one out, and I don't look at it at all. If you're the top dog, you have nothing to prove, nothing to gain. Why would you?
Yeah, so here's Ward. He's waiting for his pro day is what he said today. So Miami's going to have a pro day, and like you mentioned, he'll be able to throw with receivers that he's familiar with, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of NFL scouts watching that, and he's likely to be the first overall pick regardless of that, unless he has a disastrous pro day, which just doesn't usually happen. Another player that I'm really excited about coming out of the ACC is North Carolina running back Amari in Hampton. That's going to be someone that Belichick doesn't have next year, though. Let's keep that in mind. I like his attitude. He was at the podium today. Everyone is taught every time a different running back hits the podium, they ask him, hey, what do you think of all the Ashton Genty hype? Are you resentful or whatever? He said, no, I love it. Hampton said just how the running backs are coming together overall. Like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. I mean, I've been talking to Ashton. He's really good. That's my guy. And I think Amari in Hampton is going to make an NFL team feel pretty good wherever he lands.
People have him as far back as their running back 7 or 8. And
it's crazy.
To those people, I saw one, and I can't remember where it was from, but I thought it was a parody account because when I looked at it, he was their running back 10. I said, if there are 9 better running backs than him, congratulations, NFL. All that we throw the ball too much stuff is done. All of that nonsense is over and done with because if there are 9 young men that are better with that ball under their arm, that can do more to push your offense forward from the running back position than him, I am telling you right now, this is the resurgence of the running back in a way that we have not seen before. Amari Hampton has it all. When I say all, I mean you have to seriously look very deeply to find a flaw in his game. Does he have the breakaway speed? Yes. Your defense and mine have seen that young man, the back of his jersey, and when you see the back of that 28, go to the sideline. Take your helmet off, walk off that field. Unless you are on field goal block, you go ahead and head to the sideline. He's really good in the passing game. He's a better pass blocker than people give him credit for. He can do it with power. He can do it with agility. He's not the type of guy that's like, hey, he's got one move to go to, and if that ain't working, he is not going to be able to break a tackle. Amazing contact balance, good patience and vision, and I wouldn't say elite. I would say probably the worst part of his game is the short area burst when he sees the hole and gets through it. But even that is not bad. It's not bad at all. It's like average, but when he gets those long strides going, it's over. I'm telling you right now, that kid is phenomenal. And whatever NFL team gets him, especially if they're taking him, in general, if you're not running back 1 or 2, you're not going in the first round anymore. If somebody gets him in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, that GM is going to look like a stud. He's going to look like an absolute hero. Brad Holmes, Honolulu Blue ain't too different from Carolina Blue. It's different enough, not too different. But in all seriousness, he's an absolute stud.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned seeing him, and you're right, because there's big range on different draft boards, like seeing Hampton anywhere as low as like running back 7. I know I was watching Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network has him running back 2. So there's a range there. It's like one of those guys we don't know where he's going to end up. Like I feel like Xavier Restrepo out of Miami, there's a big range there. He's opted not to run a 40. I think I saw that today, which, I don't know, that may be frowned upon. He'll run a 40 at his pro day, though, I'm sure. But I've seen Restrepo anywhere from, and I doubt he'll go this high. I hope he goes this high. Great young man. I've seen him anywhere as high as round 2, anywhere as low as like round 5 or 6. So for some of these guys, there's a huge range. And, sometimes the combine can change those opinions, Kenton. Right. Do you think sometimes we put too much stock in the certain skills that you see at the scouting combine?
Yes, absolutely. 1,000%. I think that the combine is overrated, especially, and I know I hate to say this, but especially when you get closer to the ball, as in closer to the line of scrimmage, the combine really means less and less, man. It really does. I'm sorry to tell you, if what made a great defensive end was how he looked in shorts and T-shirt and how quickly he ran 40 yards, then a former Georgia Tech player, and Michael Johnson, would have been the greatest defensive end we've ever seen. I remember when I was a little kid watching him at the combine, I'm like, oh my God, he's built like a Greek god. He can run, he can do all the things. And this is no shot at him, because he had a great NFL career. He had quite a long NFL career. He made his money, did his thing. But the reality is, what the hell does it matter how fast your tackle can run 40 yards? What is it?
Right, exactly. When is he ever running 40 yards?
If your nose guard is running 40 yards, something has gone incredibly wrong on that play. I'm sorry to inform you, right? And many people say, well, even if you don't like the 40, the 10-yard split is important. Here's the thing. Again, I look at guys like ACC adjacent legend Kyle Hamilton, and he dropped down people's boards because he ran a slow 40. And I'm like, listen, I get it. He's a safety, and safeties do have to cover a lot of ground. A safety may end up running 40 yards on the play. Can we turn on the film of him? Because I remember a play in a game against the ACC team, Florida State. I'm sure you know exactly the play I'm about to talk about, Donno. Jordan Travis throws a go ball to the right sideline. Hamilton came off the hash on the opposite side of the field and sprinted, dead sprint to where the ball was going and picked that thing up. I don't give a damn how fast you run in shorts and T-shirt. Some guys, they have a intuition and a knack and a feel for the game that, like, whatever they run on, when there's like, oh, you're just running to the finish line, it's very different than how quickly they diagnose and say, that's a run read. I need to be right down here in this hole. That's play action. I need to be getting back. I need to cover this deep third. And so, to me, I think that it's deeply overvalued. And again, for certain positions, certain things I understand, right? Like, you want to know how big are a quarterback's hands, because how well can he secure the ball? Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, and you need to know, like, what's everybody's actual wingspan and how tall they are, because all the college websites lie. They all exaggerate.
Exactly. I wish NC State would have lied for me more, but that's another story for another time. I just went big time enough. But in all seriousness, I look at this and I say to myself, people get tricked by the combine way too much. God rest his soul, Al Davis was the worst offender of this, getting tricked by the fastest player every year. Yeah. Former ACC legend, now they're not ACC anymore, Darius Hayward-Bay from Maryland, went in the first round. Why? Because he ran in the straight line really, really fast. And what did that do for him in terms of NFL production?
But all this to say, the most important part of the combine is the part that none of us get to watch on TV, and those are the interviews, right? Like, man, if you want to make great reality TV, get a camera in those interview rooms, because a lot of GMs will famously ask like ridiculous
Wow
questions,
Some of the wildest questions you've ever heard.
just to see like how these guys handle it and how fast they think. And then there's the actual like X's and O's stuff. Like they'll sit down the quarterbacks, they'll have them watch their own game film and explain, what were your reads, what were you thinking, why did you do that, like you threw an interception, what happened there, like all that stuff is super important. And unfortunately, we don't get to see that part. But, NFL teams have to hit that out of the park. But when we come back, what's at stake in ACC hoops this weekend, as we're trying to figure out who wants a potential fourth NCAA tournament spot in this conference. We'll tell you who's in the lead for it, but who's surging. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And if you want to get some action on all these games this weekend, guys, PrizePicks is the best spot. There's no better way with March basketball here to get in on all of that action than PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least two players' stat projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, it's easy, and it keeps every game exciting. I mean, tonight we're looking at Jason Tatum over 29 or 26 and a half points, I think it is now. Anthony Davis, more than 12 rebounds this week. It's quick and easy, guys. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. You get promotions on PrizePicks like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton do a great job. I mean, we're like this close to March now. We're hours away. Maybe you're watching this, it's March already. They're going to get you guys ready for the conference tournaments, the NCAA tournament. And in terms of NCAA tournament relevance, Kenton, certainly not that this would be a quad one win at home or anything like that, but North Carolina, they need to beat Miami at home on Saturday. Miami has really struggled this year, as we know, 2-15 in conference. North Carolina is on that NCAA tournament bubble, and they're favored by 16 and a half points. And UNC has been a team. Most folks, bracketology, they still give Wake Forest the edge to grab the final ACC spot in the NCAA tournament. But North Carolina still has an opportunity, Kenton. So this is not only a must win, but probably a must look really good at home against Miami on Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. If you lose this game, this is definitely a quad four loss. Like that's you're at home against a conference bottom feeder that statistically has no shot of making the ACC tournament. You cannot lose this game.
And they're without Matthew Cleveland again, who's still out. That's Miami's top scorer. So North Carolina's supposed to kill them the way Duke did a few nights ago.
I'm still convinced that Matthew Cleveland is playing for the Noles, but you didn't hear that from me. You didn't hear that from me. No, but in all seriousness, this is a moment where North Carolina absolutely has to win this game. And also, I want to talk about something that you said before the break. Who's surging? North Carolina is surging in a major way right now. While Wake Forest has had moments, while they've had stumbles, while they've had slips down the stretch, North Carolina has not. And that, again, we can all say, oh, well, winning late doesn't really matter. But it does. It just does. Let's just say UNC goes into the conference tournament and then they win a couple games. Don't even win it outright. Just win a couple games, as opposed to Wake Forest getting bounced in their very first game. Then what does that look like? Now, I would hope, again, you see the shirt I got on, okay? It's an NC State shirt if you're watching. I would hope that Wake Forest can get it together. Come on, Coach Forbes. Keep these boys out. But in all seriousness, this is a moment where, like you said, who's surging right now has to matter.
Yeah, Wake Forest has Notre Dame at home on Saturday. Kenton, they obviously they need to keep winning. And another, and honestly, like I guess some people have SMU on the bubble. Some don't even consider them on the bubble. SMU, unfortunately, just don't have a strong enough resume, even though they have, a very respectable record, 12-5 in the ACC, 21-7 overall. They take on Stanford on the road on Saturday, but SMU's best win this year is against Pitt, who's not even going to be in the NCAA tournament. So unfortunately, it looks like the Mustangs, they had their magical run in football this year, but in basketball, they're probably going to be on the outside looking in come mid-March.
I will say this, as a team that SMU is right now, they're going to need either a ton of help or they've got to win the ACC tournament. Like you said, your best win being against Pitt is not enough. It's not enough. And even if we look at all the metrics in the KenPom and all that, they reward you losing to good teams. Yep. This team has not played enough good teams. Their out-of-conference schedule was the Southeastern Directional School for the Differently Abled. Day school. That's how you know. By the way, whenever you see day school on it, I get a little leery. I'm like, wait, do we not all go to school during the day? What's going on?
Yeah. So they don't offer night classes, apparently.
I guess. So you're looking at this situation for SMU, and you're like, hey, y'all got to win this thing outright. You've got to go win the ACC tournament to get in. As opposed, again, how far the ACC has fallen that a team with a 2-1 win-to-loss ratio in conference, nobody's scoffing at it. Nobody's like, oh man, that's oof. Or nobody's actually talking about it relevantly. People are scoffing at it.
Yes.
In terms of saying like, oh, this is nothing. We don't care. Your best win is Pitt. Well, back in the day, if you've beaten 12 or 8 or 9 ACC teams, people were going to look at you and say, oh, that's a team that belongs in the tournament. Now it's like
they got 12. You're right. They got 12 wins in conference, but these days that's not good enough necessarily.
No, sir, it is not.
Yeah. Well, we'll be looking forward to this weekend in ACC hoops. I know Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On College Basketball is probably going to join us early next week, and maybe by then we'll have Hard Knocks finalized one way or the other. We can pick his brain on that. Make sure you follow Kenton at Locked On Wolfpack and on X at TGIF_Kenton. Follow me at Locked On Canes, the show Locked On Canes and Locked On Canes on X. And we'll talk to you guys next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.